Thanks for staying with us. Now let's move straight to Nigeria Premier Football League stories, and it's all about El-Kanemi Warriors. Their players and officials were ambushed and also robbed by armed robbers along the Jos-Bauchi Road around 2 a.m. on Saturday, early hours of today. The team was returning to Maiduguri after a 2-0 defeat to Ikorodu City in Lagos during one of their NPFL Matchday 14 midweek fixtures. Now, the attackers left several players injured and made away with valuables, including phones and cash. The injured players were promptly taken to a nearby hospital in Bauchi for medical attention. We confirmed this from the media officer who was supposed to join us, but they are still en route at Maiduguri, and of course, they have a game this weekend, and I'm hoping that that game would be postponed because of the incident and, of course, the mental drain for the players and officials as well. But of course, we have a guest joining us, Enitan Obadino, an editor, sportsintel.ng. Glad to have you with us, Enitan.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining. Let's talk about El-Kanemi Warriors and the sad state of things in the Nigeria Premier Football League, because we keep talking about transportation issues for club sides, because, I mean, they played a midweek game and they're meant to play again this weekend. And that prompted them wanting to travel back to Maiduguri to be ready for their game this weekend. And this sad incident happened to them. What do you make of this and everything in general, talking about safety of these players?
Okay, this basically mirrors a big problem in the Nigerian Premier League, Nigerian Premier Football League. Issues around planning and scheduling. Logistics is at an all-time low. That leaving teams to travel at odd hours just because they needed to meet up with their next match. They just played in Lagos. El-Kanemi Warriors. First of all, I have to say condolences to them. Thankfully, no life was lost based on what we've heard so far, just some injuries for the players. But this mirrors a big problem for planning and logistics in the Nigerian Professional Football League. You talk about questions around timing of where players travel, timing. You also have to look at the quality of buses. Some of these buses, because these are government-owned teams, the bus needs to get bad before some of them worked on it. And surprisingly, they are playing their next game in Maiduguri against Bayelsa United, and Bayelsa United is already in Maiduguri waiting for them. While El-Kanemi is traveling, of course, Bayelsa went by air. Did not travel by road for that distance. So the similar thing almost happened when they won the Federations Cup final against Abia Warriors in Lagos. They traveled for 3 to 4 days before they could get back to Maiduguri for their fans to celebrate them. So that tells you a lot about the quality of planning that goes into their logistics. It's a problem that we need to look at holistically, right from the league body level. If it's about using a CBA, collective bargaining arrangement to secure flight for some certain distances for some of our players. These players are the star of the show. They are the reason why the league exists, the coaches and the players. So if their welfare is not well taken care of, then it becomes a problem for the league. You cannot be playing back-to-back games in between 4 to 5 days, 2 games in 5 days, midweek, and of course playing at the weekend, and your choice mode of traveling is via road for such distance. It's disappointing to say the least.
Right. So I know in the English Premier League, some other club sides in Europe, they play midweek games and they are always ready for their weekend fixtures as well. Now, we keep talking about transportation, publicity, and all of that for Nigeria Premier Football League. How many of these teams can even afford to fly to their several locations or match venues?
1 or 2 years ago, this would have been an easy thing to say, hey, maybe they cannot afford to travel. But we are in a time that even the cost of petrol is on the high. That means they are spending more on petrol. And of course, the cost of flying has gone high. If you notice, when I was breaking it down earlier, I mentioned something around collective bargaining arrangement at the league body level. That means teams can travel for selected games that have to do with longer distances. They don't have to travel by air every time if it comes to affordability. But we are saying if the league body can, as a central body, come together to speak to this club and help them negotiate with local airlines for, of course, we know the fixtures, certain distances between the north and the southern part of the country that usually take between 2 to 3 days. Because it's understandable that you play the game on Wednesday and you leave on Thursday. then you ask questions, what time did you leave on Thursday?
Yeah.
If you say the bus is the best route because you are going to via bus, what time? Why are you traveling in the middle of the night when the level of insecurity is very high in the country? Then you now put on the table question of affordability. How many liters of fuel are you spending for that journey between Lagos and Maiduguri? And in terms of repairs and, of course, the damages that will happen because of the quality of roads in the country for that trip. When you put all those costs together, it might make more sense for them to travel, maybe not Lagos to Maiduguri directly, maybe Lagos to Abuja and then finish the rest of the journey via road to shorten the distance for them. So affordability comes down to accurate planning of what works for each of these teams. They no longer go when they'll be traveling, and of course they are playing midweek games between Lagos and Maiduguri. Also, apart from affordability, I also like to touch on scheduling. This scheduling problem comes from the league board. They've shown a lack of imagination, in quotes, in terms of how they plan for league matches. Basically, in such cases, it is not hard for them to have double away games. If they have other teams they are playing within South, during their within the southern region, during their planning phase. So having them to travel back and forth for such distances would not make sense ordinarily. But they could also have it in a way that they could play back-to-back away games within southern teams. So they are leaving Lagos for somewhere in the south or southeast. It still makes sense distance-wise. And of course, if you are having them travel between these distances, the other alternative is to ensure that their next game will not be they will not be moving from a midweek match to a weekend match immediately for planning. So those are the things that could have been considered when we are taking affordability first, and then you say, okay, because of long-term plan, how much does the state government release per month? Most of these teams get between 35 to 50 million per month for state-owned teams, depending on the strength of the funding coming from the state government. So they know how much they are earning, and they know they can do long-term planning for all these things. Cost comes back to fuel is on the high, especially when you are even outside of Lagos. The farther away you move from Lagos, the higher the cost of fuel gets for you. So, and then bus repair. So a lot of planning and thinking needs to go into this beyond affordability.
Right. Traveling from Lagos to Maiduguri by air would be about 3 hours, but on the road, definitely you have to spend 19 to 23 hours on the road traveling. So I'm wondering, would this be a good option? I know it's almost impossible, but would it be good for us to have the northern clubs play a league format over there, while the clubs in the western part also play? Then at the end of the day, we have the winners, or rather the top three from the north, from the southwest, and all of them come together to play a major final to have a champion emerge for the Nigeria Premier Football League. Would this be a good option?
It's not a bad option if you are being fair. And I think I was in discussion this morning with a few stakeholders in the Nigerian Premier League, Premier Football League. Basically, we are looking at the options. This is a considerable way that you can say, okay, let's increase the number of teams in the top line to 24 teams, and you have 12 across the regions. Then after that one, you play Super Six to determine the final, the winner across both regions. So averagely, teams who make it to the Super Six will play 29 games, and then of course teams who do not make it to Super Six will play around 22 games. Basically, so but why we struggle to go with this format is basically because of we are bothered about the number of games that our top clubs will play before going on the continent. This question arises that have they been tested enough? Have they tested themselves against stronger teams, depending on the strength of the 12 teams that will be chosen for each region? So we do not have direct answers in terms of strength and quality of opposition each region can present. And how many years did it take for each region to produce a certain level of quality teams, so that by the time we are sending teams out, or the quality or outcome of the league champions will be fair enough for both sides. Also, you have to consider the country as a whole. We are a country in need of integration, and not a country that wants to bring, unless we get to that level where we are switching to form of regional government, then that might make sense. But if not, it will be hard to want to break deep down into regions, considering all those efforts. We already have countries trying that, even in Europe. But does it work for the kind of policy and the kind of governance we are pushing in Nigeria? Of course, you have to also consider that this will drive down the cost of operating teams. when you are playing within your region, the cost of traveling, those are the advantages. The cost of traveling, distances covered will reduce. And of course, I can leave this to the imagination in terms of how happy the club administrators were. We know corruption is endemic basically in the league. That means it will cut down costs, and state government will have to pay lesser to run these teams. But will the administrators be happy to see this? Basically, that's the question we have to seek for answer, not an accusation. That's a question we'll seek an answer for if this works out for the current planning and, of course, the type of administrators we have in our league.
Right. Lastly, of course, El-Kanemi Warriors are set to play tomorrow, Sunday to be precise. And the NPFL, they've not even said anything about the situation. Don't you think it is best for this particular game, to be postponed? Because I'm sure the players of El-Kanemi Warriors will not be in the good state of mind to feature in that game.
It is surprising. The trend for me is a bit disappointing, because if you consider that the league board, when they started the season, even as the last season, they were always quick with their resolutions, and basically they're always quick with coming out to make it. But of late, we basically are not getting enough quick, rather, let me use the word quick intervention or quick replies from the league board. We don't know what will happen. Will the match be postponed? And you have to consider that, like I said earlier, Bayelsa United, they have their own communication, has arrived in Maiduguri, waiting for the home team coming to face them. So at whose cost will Bayelsa United have to either stay back for some days or leave and return? Who will bear the cost? So those are the questions that the league body will have to answer, because, of course, the players of El-Kanemi have reported some of them injured, and you have to also consider their state of mind. This is almost looking like a lost game for them if their current state of mind do not allow them or permit them to perform at the highest level that they usually would have presented for this game.
All right, we just hope that the NPFL will get to do something. The league board will say something early enough to make us understand the situation between El-Kanemi Warriors and Bayelsa United, because this game will go on as planned if nothing is being said. And if it doesn't go on, what day will they likely play? And like you rightly mentioned, on whose cost will this game be postponed? And of course, who would feed Bayelsa United, who will give them money and all of that? It's quite a dicey situation, but of course, I just hope that will come to a better resolution very, very fast. But thank you very much, Enito Abadino, for joining us today to talk about El-Kanemi Warriors and their incident.